Watching HCAM TV.
Hello, Hopkins, and welcome to today's edition of the Hopkins Hangout Hour. I'm Mike DeRozier. With me co-hosting this morning is Tim Kilduff. Tim, how we doing?
Mike, I'm doing reasonably well. How about you?
Oh, doing great so far. This beautiful day, and again inside, and if stuck inside, I'm glad I'm here with you.
Well, thank you. It is a spectacular day, isn't it? It's about time.
Absolutely. And joining us to do some catching up is Bob Dubinsky. Hello, Bob.
Hey guys, how are you?
Doing great here. Doing fantastic. I see you got your mask on. Where are you today?
So I'm at the Boston Convention Center again.
Yep.
Since we talked last, and I can't remember when that was, we've been assisting with the freight movement, supplies in and out, laundry, from 7 in the morning till 7 at night in support of Partners Healthcare and Mass General.
It's great. And joining us also is host Jim. Jim, are you there?
Finally, it wasn't easy.
It wasn't easy. All of a sudden, I had a host. It's like, oh my goodness.
I had to
Thank
update
you.
my whole computer. Bob, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, welcome, Tim. How are you?
I'm reasonably well. I wish I could be with you guys in person, but you know, we'll do what we have to do at the moment, right?
That's right. We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Bob, you mentioned our conversation. Boy, 2 weeks at least, huh? Maybe 3.
I think it might have been longer than that, because I think we originally talked just as the treatment centers here were activated for the folks that need shelter, and then for kind of like the end of people's treatments where they no longer need the IC component of a hospital, make room for other heads and beds, and they come in here to do 2-3 days of rehabilitation, and then thankfully go home.
Yeah, let's hope so. Take us back to just to very quickly, briefly, take us back to the beginning and how you ended up being where you're at.
So the beginning was, I believe, April 4th. It'll be 6 weeks Friday. We received a call from Suffolk Construction looking for assistance at the convention center to activate over 1,000 treatment areas, 500 for the folks that need shelter, and for the 500 I just mentioned. And within a 2-week period of time, we transformed what we refer to as Hall B and C to those treatment areas. Once activated, which was probably 4 weeks from then, we reduced our 7 a.m. to 7 a.m., which is a 24-hour shift with multiple men, down to that 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. shift, assisting partners with the further implementation in the treatment areas and, as I mentioned, the handling of their supplies.
What's it been now? Every day, I assume now, is that since April 4th is almost like a new day, isn't it? It's and I don't mean the sun comes up. I mean there are new regulations, new situations that occur probably on a daily basis, I would think.
Well, and yes, but I guess I'm kind of happy to say that the PPE, the personal protective equipment, and the mandates really haven't changed much. They've done a real good job of keeping all of us healthy here. I'm not able to report one person that's worked here at the treatment area from 6 weeks ago till now that have contracted the virus. Everybody stays healthy and safe.
Wow. In your team, the corporate communications team, you have others in there with you, I assume.
We have a lot of assistance, and I think a good shout out has to go to one of our Hopkinton residents, Jay Britt, who on that April 4th jumped in, and because of the fear of the virus, he has been across the street at the Element Hotel since then, and does 7 a.m. to say 10 a.m. I come in here to spell him for a little bit, and then he comes back, finishes up the day. But he's anxious to kind of understand the next step of this activation.
He literally has been in town since April 4th.
Yeah, he's visited by his family on Mother's Day and a couple birthdays, and a lot of the office help have assisted him with some home cooked meals and stuff. But yeah, a real shout out to Jay Britt.
Wow, great for you. That's great. That's great to hear. Please give Jay our best, will you?
We will. And then The some other Hopkinton folks that have kind of assisted us, Keith Wielding, been part of our team for a couple years. He spells myself and Jay on an occasion, and Wally Henneberry is in here as well, but of course not to the extent that Jay Britt is.
You know, Jim, I can imagine, Jim, that the communications loop that Bob is in has got to be a pretty interesting one.
I know. I would think so. I would think so. And I mean, that must be a really great place to be, is for communications and for keeping contacted and connected with a whole bunch of things. Bob, I was wondering, when you were just talking, you mentioned the next step. Could you elaborate on that? Is there what is the next step that's coming?
Well, that's Jim, that's a great question, and that's not a question that I don't get often asked. Because we're here, there isn't a lot of what's the next step, and this is what we suspect we're going to do, and this is what we're going to do. It really all boils down to the governor and the wonderful way that he's been able to handle the situation. So until the data, and he talks about data all the time, comes relevant, we are active. Happy to say that the numbers of intakes have gone down. The number of the folks that need shelter have gone down. Interesting to note that the convention center in Worcester, the DCU center, is now deactivated. As you might guess, I'm in touch with other people across the country, and it does look like they're deactivating in New York and in Chicago. And fortunately, we were able to assist a lot of people here, but unfortunately, we had to assist a lot of people where New York and Chicago really hasn't seen the numbers that we have at this small convention center.
You know, I think that is really impressive and really important to highlight, because if you can think back about a month or so ago when the New York governor was talking about needing so many ventilators and talking about having to ration health care, to today where they're deactivating the DCU center, you know what? That is such a success story for how everyone is doing what they need to do to bend that curve. Because would you rather have not activated DCU and needed it, or have it activated and not need it? It just really goes to show that our leadership is really paying attention and is really planning for the worst, but giving us the tools we need to not get to that worst case scenario.
They are. They're trying to go ahead and serve and plan for all. And there's a lot of people that are involved with this. The Army Corps of Engineers, as I mentioned, Suffolk Construction, Partners Healthcare, a team called Home Base, which is established just to go ahead and do these type of activations because of the different coordination levels.
You know, we don't see obviously what goes on in all the other states, but I get this sense that in particular the mayor of Boston and also the governor have paid attention to I guess you'd call it the people of need or people in need, homeless, that sort of thing. Is that true? Is that your sense?
Well, I think there's look, we're far away from the governor's office or the mayor's office. We're here to go ahead and assist, but there does seem to be a great degree of camaraderie with everyone in here. Of course, we're not of high spirits, but we're not necessarily of negative or adversity spirits. So I think that's a tribute to the state. It's a tribute to the governor and the mayor and how they're working together to control the situation.
Yeah. How about we hear a lot of stories too about the supply chains and getting product and that sort of thing, safety issues. That's part of your getting that in, but getting it through the door is probably part of the responsibility of the crew you work with.
Well, we're kind of we're on call. If somebody needs a truck to get unloaded, we're there. We have as I mentioned, the staff of some dedicated corporate events people, Teamsters, that have kind of risen to the occasion. And there's no difficulty getting assistance for this because one, they're employed, but maybe more importantly than that, the folks know that they're making a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
I was wondering if you could, now that you've been there, could you tell us a little bit about what the environment is like? Are you getting tested? And also, could you talk about on our last show, you
Mhm.
were explaining how they were creating a positive pressure with their ventilation system. And as this thing ramped up and you built it and then it became online,
Mhm.
what did what kind of bugs had to be worked out, or what kind of things did you see in operating it?
Well, let's first talk about the protocol. And I think that for folks that see the workers around town or see me around town, I really don't have leprosy. Every 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 morning, you get your identity checked. You sanitize your hands. You get handed a fresh mask. You're asked if you have any symptoms, and then you have your temperature taken within a nanosecond, and you go about your work. Upon coming back to Hopkinton, immediately put your clothes in a washer. You take a shower, and from everybody here tells us that that alleviates the virus from being spread.
Hmm.
Um, the supply chain here, I think, because of the coordination of home base and the hospital, we have not heard a murmur of anybody needing anything that they couldn't get. In so much that our team, if we need another thing, a hand sanitizer or a mask or any of the PPE equipment, it's readily available. So again, shout out to the governor, the mayor, and the folks at Partners in Mass General.
You mentioned you really are part of a bigger team, the Teamsters and others. It's got to be pretty exciting to be around people that have a clear uh, focus and expectation. You're bringing diverse groups together. That must be pretty exciting.
Well, it was in the beginning, but no, it was in the beginning because all those groups were here. So there were laborers, there were carpenters, and because the building and treatment center has been activated, the Teamsters are the ones that are kind of managing that supply chain. Jim, I missed something a minute ago when you mentioned the airflow.
Yeah.
That gets tested every 2 days to make sure the ventilation system is taking all the air from a negative standpoint that are in those treatment centers and really in the area that we're in and exhausting it to the outdoors. So
Okay.
there, just as there's an ongoing checklist for people coming into the building, there's an ongoing checklist for how the ventilation system managed by Cox Engineering that's doing a great job. I see Kevin Cox all the time.
Yeah. Now, as everybody knows, Bob, we've never had a pandemic like this before in our lifetimes. And I remember you were saying that when they brought you in, there were a whole bunch of protocols and a whole bunch of ways to put this together and
Mm.
operate it. So I'm curious, now that it has been operating, have the protocols or however you do what you do, were they really solid, or did they grow and adapt as you were using them?
No, I think you got a good memory, Jim. So the safety officer would kick off our crews every morning. The protocols that were in place then still are in place now. There hasn't been any uh, real deviations to that. And as I mentioned earlier, a credit to those safety officers and the protocols because nobody's sick.
Yeah, that's really
Nobody's
great.
gotten sick that I'm aware of. Now I might be wrong, but certainly from our team, everybody's healthy. Probably could be a little happier if they could go back to work.
Right.
But you mentioned I want to go back to the change of air in the building, Bob. That's got to be an enhancement for exhibits and conventions in the future. I'm sure that the system's been enhanced, has it not?
Well, yes. One of the good things that have kind of come out of this in the international exhibition team, and this is an international team now, are hosting car events in China, and they're under different protocols. And one of those protocols is the ventilation system and new filters and clean air and distancing, physical distancing, because as you know, we're on the show and we're still we're not socially distant. And once those protocols are out and proven, we're hopeful and we'd be thankful to get back to the exhibition and trade show business across the country.
You know, when you talk about social distancing and stuff like that, I was really interested when I was listening to Governor Baker yesterday, and he seemed to be saying, if you can't keep 6 feet, wear a mask. And I'd never heard that before. Do you have any knowledge that had been given to you as how those two things interrelate? I thought that you always wore a mask and you tried to keep at least
Well,
6 feet away.
So that's way above my pay scale, Jim.
Me too.
Anything from a scientific standpoint, I didn't necessarily do well in school either. But one of the things that my son had mentioned to me early on, he said, Dad, wear your mask, be polite to others, because you're not necessarily protecting yourself with your mask, but you're protecting the others with your mask on. So I think that's the courtesy that you see around town at the center trail and the different places that we traverse, is people with masks are being respectful to other people. And whether there's a pandemic and they believe that the virus is still can be spread or it's a hoax, has no bearing on the fact they should be polite to other people. So I think this is it's another way people are going to be polite to one another.
You know, it's really interesting that you mentioned that. On one of the shows earlier, we had a resident on who's been making masks for our community, and she was talking about she had been in Japan. And in Japan, even before this pandemic hit, everybody wears masks in Japan. And she felt it was part of their culture as a way to maintain privacy in very crowded positions. And I thought that was really interesting because they were doing it not for protection, but just for privacy. And it was just part of their everyday life.
Yeah,
Wow.
you see that with a lot of your international travel, especially the Asians. If they feel as though they have a cold or a sneeze or a sniffle, to be polite to people, they put on a mask.
Yeah.
Read the good
Let's talk-
stuff, not the bad stuff.
Let's talk about going forward. Yeah, look into the future. Give us a sort of a sense of, because of the virus and because of the pandemic, a sense of the loss in the tourism and in convention business. I mean, there has to have been a lot of cancellations, for example, number one. And then I'd like to hear your thoughts on going forward and the kind of challenges that as a commonwealth, as a state and a community that we're going to have. And we could even ultimately take this down to Hopkinton as well. It's the same challenge, different scale, but the same thing.
Sure. And Tim, I think you're aware I've been involved in the Park and Rec for a long time in Hopkinton. And one of the nicest things, or one of the good things that came out of the governor's speech, is he's willing to open up outdoor activities. So that's going to affect our summer camps, and it's going to affect our protocol for our summer camps, and hopefully we can continue with those. Optimistically, especially near to you, is the marathon in September, and by that time, hopefully, the protocols and maybe even a vaccine is proven. That I've always been optimistic, but I am optimistic that some of our regular daily activities and events and our physical distancing can be lessened.
You know, I think we don't spend enough, we probably haven't spent enough time thinking about, you take this down to the local level. Parks and Rec is an example. They run extensive programming in the summer. There's income involved and so forth. If that weren't to go forward, that's a major challenge. Meaning, that's just one department in town, Parks and Rec. Be a major challenge, I would think.
Well, we meet weekly, and we're discussing, and again, we're looking for guidance from the governor. We're looking guidance from the region. We're looking guidance from our health officials in Hopkinton, what's going to be permissible to go ahead and protect our community. And Jim, you asked me my opinion earlier. You can have all the opinions in the world, but if you don't listen to the experts and the data, it doesn't matter. So I don't offer too many opinions.
What did you listen to the Governor Baker press conference yesterday? Have you looked at what's been coming out of the office now with the phased reopening?
I was in here at the convention center and we were a little bit busy, but I did pick up bits and pieces. And Jim, as you had mentioned, if you're going to be out, some of his suggestions in a very precautionary way, I think we need to be heard and people need to practice them as well. And then I think we'll continue to flatten the curve and feel more comfortable.
Jim, one of the things I spent a little time looking at are the rules, regulations, if you will, standards, whatever the right word is, for barbershops, for example.
Oh, I didn't hear that part. Tell
Well,
me about that.
besides, I think we have got to, you guys are both too young, but I'm deciding I'm going to go to CVS and see if I can find some Brylcreem pretty soon. It's getting a little extreme, but talking to an owner of a very successful barbershop, the devil is in the details. It's yes, they can open up. I think it's the 25th, but then there are a whole set of regulations and details that we're just not aware of. So it's not an insignificant challenge to reopen some of these businesses because there are a whole new set of rules. I would think in your business, Bob, in the convention business, the same thing is going to apply.
Well, it's going to apply to, it's already applied to the construction industry, which the governor did for a little bit that I caught. He did open up, but in working with the Suffolk people, just conversing with them, more restrooms, staggered starts, distancing. So a lot of the construction projects are concrete and foundation, and they're not necessarily drywall and painting where people are right next to each other. And it'll be phased in.
I think you're right. I mean, he's and the other thing I think that needs repeating, deserves repeating, is what you've said a couple of times about the governor. He clearly is data driven, clearly, and he's been that way from day one. I think that's how he runs his administration, quite frankly.
Right, and he values the opinion of his data collection people, and he's not asking them to alter any of the. Just tell me what the facts are, and then let's be able to deal with it with the other side of the experts.
Yeah.
And what about where you are now? Did you say there were no decreases in bed space up to this point?
We have not deactivated any of the treatment rooms, so they've been fully intact. They're controlled by the air conditioning that I mentioned, or the air conditioning, the protocols. What I did mention, just for clarity, is that the number of occupants in the treatment area have decreased. The number of occupants in the folks that needed shelter from the Pine Street Inn or some of the other locations has been decreased.
Are you able to say how close to maximum capacity you hit before it started to decrease?
I wouldn't want to venture that guess because to a large part that's really not our business. We have seen a little bit of a slowdown in the supplies coming in, and we're waiting to hear how long we can be of service here before we need to deactivate and then put some heads in beds in the hotels in Boston.
That was my next question. Is there any idea? Are they going to come in one day and say, "Hey, that's great, we're all done"? Or do you think you will get some type of notice? We're winding this down over the next couple of weeks or something?
Good question. And the biggest thing that's on everybody's mind, the folks that are going to help deinstall the treatment areas, is the protocol for decontamination. And there's a company in here that's worked diligently called Clean Harbors that sanitize, decontaminate. They need about a week after about from what I understand. Let me reiterate. The protocol that they're going to follow will be observed by the federal government, the state government, the building here. So under no terms is there any virus in the building for conventioneers or folks coming into the meeting area. And it's important for our workers too.
Yeah.
Jim, I have a question for you. For both of you, right? You now have been doing the Hangout Hour for how long?
3 or 4 weeks now. No, at least 3 or 4. Yeah, probably 4 or 5.
What do you think? Are you pleased with it? And then, what have you learned? And
Mm.
then, Bob, before we go, I'd love for you to talk a little bit and expand on the idea of respect. And I think one of your sons said, be nice and be polite. Maybe we can finish up with that. But Jim, how's it been going, and what have you learned?
Surprisingly, it's the best of times and the worst of times, because it's very difficult creating shows with this level of quality. It's not our HCAM standard. However, we've always been about community, and this has been a tremendous success in reaching community. The comments and the feedback that I get are wonderful, that people enjoy watching it. They feel connected. I think that we're live. That's an important aspect of it. And when we do get back into the studio, something like this will continue on, because I do think it accentuates and adds to what we do for community.
I agree.
Bob, how do you translate your experience, what you've learned, this sort of mantra going forward to back to your hometown?
Well, I think your question is, how does this media work for us from a social standpoint? And I think it's important for everybody to be in touch with folks, especially if you can have the physical closeness. So in a lot of ways, the social distancing isn't really the right term, because I think a lot of people are even more social now. The few drivers that are on the road are certainly going a lot faster down the Mass Pike, but they are a little bit they are a little bit more courteous. And the police have been terrific about not disrupting traffic and just staying put no matter what the speed limit is.
That's great.
Yeah, you're right about the speed.
All right,
But be careful, because the fatality rate on the highway is the same as it was when all the traffic was there.
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Important message.
Bob, we got a question on social media asking if you have any information yet about the concerts on the Common.
You know what, Jim? We don't, to the best of my knowledge, but I know our staff is working. Colleen, Jenny, and Jay are working very diligently with the health officials in Hopkins to understand what the edicts might be. I can tell you that all those acts are booked a long time ago, so they're all set for the summer as soon as we need to activate.
Yeah, that's a
Good
hard
question.
hard decision. That's going to be hard because it's so. I mean, you look at it, and there are things in my family that have been planned that have been canceled, and well, let's wait till we get closer, because maybe things will be better. It's hard to see. I mean, I think this week has been really good in hearing that the curve has been bending. What we've been going through has been helpful. I mean, that's a glimmer of hope right there.
Well, and the fact that the governor's guidance in that direction to say that here are the protocols we need to follow, and if we're successful in not seeing a spike, we can go on to the next level. So that's good stuff.
Especially, I couldn't believe he was saying we're in the top 4, top 5 of the hot spots, our state in the country.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And in the region that's still a little bit nervous is the Rhode Island, Lower Connecticut area.
Yeah,
because they're kind of the meat of the sandwich.
Yeah,
You have us and you have New York City, but they've been a little bit more cautious to activate places like the Mohegan Sun, which is at the ready, but hasn't had to go ahead and pull the trigger on it yet.
I love your colloquialisms. The meat of the sandwich. That's a good one.
Well, let's see what he came up with as a sort of a closing statement, then a message. If
Yes,
you will,
we have 30 seconds. We have 30 seconds left, Bob.
Well, I want to thank you for the opportunity just to kind of keep people informed, and I'm flattered that you've asked me back more than once. So I guess I didn't flub up too much the first time. But Jim, Tim, keep doing what you're doing, and Tim, prayers are with you as far as the marathon taking place in September.
Amen. Amen. Keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you so much, Bob. We really appreciate the work you're doing and the time that you're giving to our community.
Jim, and the curtains behind you even look better this week. You must have fixed them.
It's the camera. It's the camera.
Those. Let me know if you need a different color.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Tim, thanks so much for joining us again.
Anytime, Jim. We're proud of what you guys are doing. Keep up the good work.
Okay, we got you on tape now. Anytime, we'll be calling.
Okay.
Have a great day. And now we turn it over. I believe Mike is the next host for the next half hour.
Thanks, Jim. You are correct. I appreciate it. Good seeing you. Nice show. Thank you, Bob, for all you do. And with me this half hour, I'm lucky to have, as always, John Ritz as a co-host. He's always helping me out whenever I ask. Hi, John.
Hello.
Thanks for coming in. And today, the main reason I asked John will probably do most of the talking. I'm just going to sit here and look pretty. But today I have with me Craig Hay from the high school, music subject matter leader and all around heck of a guy. Craig, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Hi, Mike. How you doing? John, how you doing?
All right.
Good to see you.
So let's just catch up. A lot of people know who you are. I don't have to go through the whole song and dance, but what you been doing these days of isolation? How you been holding up?
Well, my family and I, we've been well. We're all. My wife's a teacher as well, so we've all been either online teaching or with my children online learning. It was quite a switch March 10th to go right into it, and we've just been like we're set up around the house, and computers everywhere, and everyone's doing well with what they have to do right now.
Right, online. Did you ever do anything like that before? Any kind of teaching over the computer?
You know what? No. I think a lot of us had, we've taken some classes online, we've done some recertification stuff online. But, when we left school on March 10th, I think most of us were just thinking like, oh, we'll be back on Monday. It's, 3 days.
3 days. Remember that? 3 days?
3 days.
That was a great statement.
And, when we found out, the following, weekend, this is what we have to dive into. It was a complete and total revamp of our curriculum. And, for those of us in performance, it's like, well, what are we going to do? I do have to say that the music department, all the teachers on the music department did an absolutely wonderful job of just, diving in, researching, figuring out how we're going to change what we do for the students, and really try to make it work for us in this time where we can't get together and perform. Everybody from kindergarten, Mrs. Moran at Marathon School, all the way through high school, just took it and went running with it, and was able to provide curriculum and music instruction for students, by the time we needed to get started. And I really felt like we did a tremendous job as a group and as a team to help each other out and be prepared to start teaching music online.
Well, go ahead, John.
No, I follow some of the teachers on Facebook, and there is some anxiety out there. Did you find yourself as the department head doing some cheerleading hand holding?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of anxiety. I mean, for everyone. I mean, not just the music department. I would say it was district wide, where it was like, holy cow, we've got to change everything. I know through the administration and Dr. Kavanaugh, and especially working with Evan Bishop and Josh Hanna and Justin Palmanville, they did a really good job to help support us and help get us ready. And, between all the building principals and, figuring out what we could do, what they could do to help us, really helped us, sort of bring the anxiety level down. I do have to say, the first day that we went live, I think everyone was the same thing. Like, is this Zoom thing going to work? And you hit the button and you're like crossing your fingers, and it did. From what the reports I hear from all the music teachers, in my department, is that we have a good turnout of kids joining every day. Kids are working and learning, and, they're doing a great job with it. Do we miss the togetherness part? Of course we do. And, for the kids, emotional support, I think just, being able to log in every day and see their teacher and, tell us about the even the tiniest little things that happened in their house that day. You know, they just they want to do that. They want that connection. So it's great to be able to support them as well and just be like, all right, thank you for telling me about your hamster today. you know, that it's what they want. And we're just trying to help everyone get through this whole pandemic time.
I forget who, I want to say it was Evan Bishop, but somebody said that they made a point to the teachers of saying, you're all first year teachers this year. This is,
Yeah.
we're all, just treat yourself as you've just walked into a school for the first time, and this is what we're all learning. But so
Yeah.
being on this end of things, you have to be helping your kids, watching them remote learning. Are you picking up any tips from your end that you're able to apply to your teaching?
Well, I think one of the things, it's funniest thing that I've picked up is, and it has nothing to do with technology or anything like that. It's having to wait and listen, because you can't have two people talking at once on Zoom. You lose it.
Sure.
And I think it's been one of the neatest things to watch. Even the kids, like, they don't interrupt you anymore. They wait and you wait. Though I think we will miss the mute button when we go back to work live. We can't turn you off. But it's one of the neatest things that I've seen, is that, and I think we all kind of got away from it, but just the ability to really listen and have a good conversation with people. I think that's the biggest thing I've picked up so far. As far as the technology and, what I've learned here at home, and, I've learned that my kids are way faster at this than I am. And they had started their online learning right on March 13th. They got assignments and it was just dive right in. And watching them for a couple weeks with the amount of work they did and how they adjusted was very helpful for me when planning my assignments for the high school band students. I was like, all right, I see where, my son's a freshman, and, what classes he was really spending a lot of time with, just because it was a little bit more dense. Now you have to do a little bit more on your own. And, seeing what classes that were a little bit easier for him. And, I was like, okay, I can find a good balance with what I'm asking my students to do. And, so that helped out a lot too.
So do you find, or now here you are, you're the subject matter leader, and do you find that where music starts in Hopkins, the younger teachers, I should say, the younger grade teachers, aren't they able to, like, all right, here's your clarinet, and you hold it like this. They usually place in your hands and helping you hold it. So they had to adapt to a new style. How's it going for them?
So one of the things that I was asked right away with just the amount of kids was Caitlin McDonald asked if I could join her classes in the morning. And she has done an absolutely tremendous job at going about teaching beginning band and beginning orchestra online. She's created a room in her house. She's got a whiteboard up. She screenshots things so she can show kids what to write in. One of the things, that's difficult with Zoom is that you can't have everyone playing. So she does mute everybody, but she'll demonstrate. And we still have the kids do, she does sort of like karate belt tests. So, when a kid feels ready, they can just wait till the end of class and they'll play for us. But she's done a tremendous job of just like changing her instruction method so that the kids are doing, continuing to play, listening to her example, and just moving forward. Is it the same pace that we would when we were
Live shows, we love this. We're
Yeah.
used to it. That's all right.
Yeah.
We're
Welcome
old.
to Zoom.
Is it the same pace that we moved at, prior? No. But it's working. And I think that's the most important part. And she's done an absolutely wonderful job. And then, to look at what's going on at the middle school with Mr. Dodge, Mr. Purdy, and Mrs. O'Toole with the band and orchestra there. They're just continuing on with that, and it's worked out really, really well. The kids are doing a great job. And what will it be like when we come back? Who knows what we'll all sound like? But we won't be in a place where we're so far behind that it's like starting over again. We'll have to do some work,
Right.
a little bit of remediation, but I don't think it's going to be that bad.
Did you have time for kids to take instruments home? Did you sort of realize that this might be a while, so take the tuba or take the big stuff?
Well, we lucked out on the 10th because that was supposed to be the Hopkins concert that night.
Oh.
So all the Hopkins kids had their instruments. And then when we got the call a little before 5 o'clock that we needed to cancel the performance, we were able to get online, do everything, and get everybody the notification to stay home. The concert wasn't happening. So pretty much every single Hopkins kid had instruments. We then had to do special days for pickup for middle school and high school. Especially with the kids not being allowed in the buildings. It was a lot of running around to either the music room and bringing it out to the students, or like we did at the middle school, checking all the lockers to make sure we had all the instruments. And we've done a few days where people have just driven up. We have the instrument, we put it in the car, and there you go. So I would say, I know all the high school instruments are picked up, and I would say it's like 98% of the middle school instruments were picked up. And, it's worked out really, really well.
So now, other than the instruments, you also have choral. So you have Mr. Brody and Mrs. Nielsen. How do they make that manage?
So they've been doing sort of very similar things. They've had kids work on pieces of music, at home just to sing parts. I know at the middle school, they've used a program called Smart Music where they can see the music on the screen and they can record to it. So Miss Nielsen's done a lot with that. Mr. Brody would have kids work out in breakout rooms so that they could actually work together a little bit and try to create some music together. And they've done a little bit of using the acapella app and trying to sing together and make that work. So that's how they've made their programs work, which is pretty good.
And this is all new technology to the district.
Yep, this is all new technology stuff we really hadn't been using as much. Smart Music's been around for a while, and we've used that as a teaching aid at the middle school. But we really haven't required the kids to have it. We've always said that it's a good thing to have and it'd be good to practice with. The owner of that app has allowed all students across the country to use it free until June 30th. So we jumped on that right away, or I should say, Mr. Purdy jumped on that right away. He got the notification and was like, "We're going to do this." I'm like, "Perfect, go for it." And they've done a great job with it. So the good part with Smart Music was that the books that we use with the kids were in there. Some of the music that Miss Nielsen was working on was already in there for the kids to use. So that really helped out at the middle school level.
So how long would you say from when school closed till you knew you were going to do this, that you knew 3 days wasn't going to happen? Did it take you go from when you started doing the online to the point that, you know what, I think we got this nailed down? Did it take, how long did it take, or is it still a work in progress?
I think it's still a work in progress. We're all trying things out. This is completely different. And I think one of the good things is that with so many music teachers reaching out across the state or even nationally, whether it be on Facebook or other sites, people have been really good about, here's an idea that I came up with. It might work for you. It worked for me. If it doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. People are sharing information like crazy.
Yes.
So to find assignments and to find things to do with the kids, to do with the students is pretty easy right now. I mean, you can type in just in a regular search bar and be like online band, and people have posted different things that they're doing. Um, so I think, while we're now a couple months into this and people are starting to have a level of comfort, I think there's just so much out there that, we haven't even attempted yet or tried yet, that, if we're ever forced back into doing remote learning, there's stuff out there we can try. So we'll see what happens.
Now,
Do you
as you
have a,
mentioned, oh, go ahead, John.
do you have a favorite tip or a really cool tip that you've picked up from someplace else that you've been able to use?
Well, one of the things right away was like a lot of band directors that I know personally were just like, well, we can't play. What are we going to do? And everyone was just like, well, we're going to create a listening lesson. And one of the things I did right away was like, well, I don't want it just a regular, let's listen to band music. That would be kind of boring lesson. But I wanted to find something that would grab the kids' attention and give them some choice. And so I did a big listening lesson for a month where I gave them a list of music from every continent, from different countries all over the world. And it basically was try 2 new pieces of music a week. And I've had them developed a form, and they would fill out the form. And last time I checked, I wasn't expecting the kids to enjoy this that much, but they did. They really enjoyed listening to new music and trying out, what new sounds are out there. And last time I checked, they had submitted over 900 forms. Wow. Of just music from all over the world. Some of them were a little shy. They just like, well, I like pop music, so I'll listen to K-pop, and they would listen to that. But we had kids try, music I had never heard before. So I've got this gigantic, great list now that I can share with all the students of just world music to enjoy and try out new things. So I think that was a really interesting positive that came out of the assignments. And
Hey, what countries have give us a country that you wouldn't have thought of or wouldn't have heard of, that you heard something cool?
I was actually pretty interested in the fact that we had some kids listening to, it's kind of pop music, it's kind of folk music, but from like Turkey, but not even like Istanbul, that area, more towards, like Russia and that area, Middle Eastern, Armenian, just different style of music. Some of it, was modernized and had like a backbeat to it. Others were just a very, ethereal type music that maybe they were listening to, and they just, they clicked on it, and it just gave them that sort of relaxed feeling that, with all the anxiety that was around, that they needed at the time. And so there were just some very interesting things. We had a lot of kids checking out music from, Eastern Asia, Southern Asia. We had some kids who really got into like tango music from, South America, so it was neat to see them trying all different types.
Are any of the kids collaborating amongst themselves and doing, like 4 of them playing and editing it together to make something?
You know what? If they haven't really been doing that yet, I know of a few kids who've dived into like trying some composition. I did have one kid who joined it ended up being a 600-piece big band, where they were doing video game music. So they picked a video game piece, they sent it out. He learned it, made his recording, and joined. I know that the composer Eric Whitaker, who first really brought up the virtual ensemble videos, he's doing another virtual choir. And the number of people involved is just like amazing. I think it was like I think like he had 30,000 people like ask to join. So yeah, I mean, there's some of those projects, and some of the kids have done things like that. We did just the Hopkinton hymn. We tried it out, put it on GarageBand. got to send it out a little bit more. I mean, I sent it out to a few people, but it kind of stopped. So I got to get that sent out so you can hear that. That was our attempt at doing this, and thanks to Mr. Dodge for spending all the time editing that, because that takes, as you guys know, a lot of time to edit
Uh.
a whole lot of sound coming in.
I did one of those for Boston University. They had us record the fight song for the class of 2020, and you don't want to know how many takes it took me to get a decent recording. I did one on tuba and one on euphonium, and yeah, you'd get like 5 measures in and screw something up. Like, gotta start over. But that came out fun.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you now, since you always mention that all this hard work that the students have to put in to get to this point is for the performance. And right now, this is would have been a pops time, right? That would have happened last week or
What happened this past Sunday?
it would have happened this past Sunday, and it's one of the things that John and we look forward to every year as far as able to broadcast it. But I know the parents enjoy it because here it is, the end of the year, and this is for them, and it's a great show. All right, so now, okay, that's gone by, and now we're thinking summertime, and of course, John, and I know I'm thinking of your community band. You know, did anything yesterday that you were listening to, because I'm sure everyone was tuned into the governor at 11 o'clock yesterday, is there anything that says, oh my goodness, I might be able to get the band back together?
It's one of those things where I'm just going to take the same approach, that a lot of people are doing it right now, is just wait and see. I mean, it's going to depend on Parks and Rec. It's going to depend on Board of Health. We'll see what, everyone says in the next few weeks. Would I like to get it going? Yes. Is it going to have to be different? Yeah, I think we're going to have to do some different things. One of the fun parts about summer band is the weekly rehearsal, and it's just you're seeing people that you don't get to see all year, and
Sure.
talk with and hang out with and make some music with. We may not be able to do that this year. We may have to say that it's like, all right, you're going to come in, we're going to have basically a dress rehearsal day and make sure we're all spread out and go from there.
Wow.
I've got a few ideas in my head. I've talked to Mr. Purdy and Mrs. McDonald a little bit about it, but I think what we're going to do is just really wait until we hear from the town. If the summer concert series is a go, and they feel confident that they can do it safely, I'll reach out to all the members and we'll get the group together.
Well, let me ask you this question, and I know this might be premature, but this is how much that I love this concert. Is if, let's say, the concerts on the Common do drop this year, but it is safe to do so and rehearse and to practice and perform, would you seek another venue like the nice little lawn out there at the HCA, or maybe and of course keep the rainy day auditorium open? I mean, what would you consider something like that?
Well, once again, I'll just have to see, what the restrictions are, and if they lift the all group, how many people can be in a group restriction.
Yeah.
It's just we have to wait and see. I mean, obviously, we're taking, we got to take health concerns over everything first.
Right.
We'd love to make music. We would love to be able to do it. I know I have a lot of students this year who are still hoping that summer band goes, because not only did we lose our Pops concert, but we lost our March concert series. We lost hosting and performing at Micah, the possibility of playing at Symphony Hall. The jazz ensemble lost the possibility of playing at the Hat Shell again.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There was a lot of losses there, and we have some kids who really want to continue performing. So, fingers crossed that
Fingers crossed.
something will
Absolutely.
work and we can do it.
So now the school, it's been nice and clean. Everything's been clean and ready for the returns and so forth. But I heard you mention to John, kids were able to get their instruments before
Hmm.
the concert, which canceled just you know before it was supposed to happen. So you're not done yet. You have all this new equipment that's all going to have to be processed again, and so you're not out of this.
No.
Even though everyone's coming back ready to go and learn, you still got to deal with all their stuff. And
Yeah.
oh boy,
So, and one of the other things that we're having to deal with, and we started doing it when we came back in January, as the whole virus thing was coming up, was just doing a lot more cleaning on our own, making sure like percussion instruments were clean, any surface was clean, stuff like that. Really reminding the students about keeping instruments clean. Um, what it'll look like in the fall, I don't know. It could be kind of crazy, but hopefully we instilled some good habits before we had to be home.
well, it's funny. Real quick, it's like I played in high school. I played trumpet, and then I'm listening to baseball coming back, and there's not going to be any sunflower seeds and no spitting allowed. Well, with a trumpet, I mean, that could be a whole new field for you to develop. What do you do with that? Do you put little catches on the bottom of the trumpet? I don't know.
Um, it's been one of the big topics, like amongst band directors in the state. What do we do? What is it going to be like? How do we keep everything clean? And it might be that we just have the kids. Each kid brings in their own small towel, put it down, and you have to take it home and clean it. I'm not touching it.
Right. I mean, I mean, you might have to put a mask over the end of the trumpet too.
Yep, and then
things like that.
Yeah, I've seen some videos with that as well.
Wow.
I don't know. We'll find out. It's a whole new world.
There's so much to think about, and I'm glad you're in charge of all this.
I don't think I have enough material to make a mask for my tuba, so that could be a problem.
Well, don't they make that? I think it's like the colleges, you would see it on their marching
Sure.
bands at halftime, right?
Yeah.
So it is possible. Okay.
All right.
Get you.
So you've been, I assume it's been you posting the stuff from the Tri-Am kids. That's been great to see. Are you getting an indication that most of the kids are looking forward to continuing to play when they get off to college?
Yeah, so what was really cool is what the students actually brought it up to me. They're just like, we want to make sure we do something for the seniors. And the student who on our Tri-Am board who's been organizing it is Rebecca Gallant. And she's a senior as well. And, we were able to get all the kids' pictures, a little blurb. And so we put it on the Tri-Am Instagram account. And we're putting it on our public schools Facebook account, just as a way to honor the seniors. They didn't get the Pops concert, so we're trying to feature them, a couple of them every day. And from what I've been hearing from a lot of the kids, they're looking at the options for next year. Two of the trumpet players who recorded this weekend, Tyler Rhodes and Nate Bertucci Bissonette, both are looking forward to continuing on playing in college. Nate is going to Merrimack and is really excited about being in one of their pep bands. I know Tyler, same thing, going down to Virginia Tech, Division I college basketball, and being able to play in a pep band there. We have kids going to UMass and BC and Providence. We have a lot of kids, staying fairly local, who will get a great opportunity to play, in some of those groups and enjoy
them.
Yeah,
That's great.
Well, that's awesome. And I see it's great to be honored because you're seeing it with everybody else honoring their seniors, whether it's a poster out on their front lawn, whether it's a team being displayed on the school lawn. As long as these kids are getting on it must be the worst ever, and I really feel for them. But time is running out, Craig, and I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your day from all your teaching and everything that you do. And we want to thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you very much. And, on behalf of the whole music department, we've worked really hard to keep music coming to the kids in Hopkinton. And hopefully everyone is at home has enjoyed listening to their children improve over the last 8 weeks at home. So
Fantastic, Craig. Thanks again. And John, thank you for stepping up and co-hosting with me.
Happy?
And we appreciate it. And thank you, our audience, for watching. And we look forward to seeing you next time here tomorrow when we're back for the Hopkins Hangout Hour.